Hi everyone, welcome back to Sweet Talk. Okay, so the other day, something happened to me that has been happening to me ever since I joined the internet about 2 years ago. And that is I got a sexually explicit content warning on my YouTube channel. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm a painter and I mostly paint nude women. I love women. I think they should be celebrated. I love what their bodies can do. The fact that they can grow a human being inside of them and then push it out of their body and then feed it with the milk. It's like something that I've just never really come to terms with how incredible that is. Like it's something that it blows my mind all the time. I love researching powerful women and they inspire me, and I paint women, and that's what I do, okay? And I paint nude women mostly in a celebration of their bodies and what their bodies are capable of. It's just magnificent to me. Tell me why every time, and I mean pretty much every single time I post one of my paintings online, it gets censored for sexually explicit content. Let's be honest, we all know why it's getting flagged. We all know why. It's because the female nipple has been turned into this thing that people cannot accept, and people are so offended by it. Okay, I know that this podcast is gonna have mixed reviews. Like, I am under no impression that people are gonna have things to say against what I'm saying. And that's fine. It's all an open discussion. But I'm just trying to say my side of it. And the topic of women's nipples being sexualized is nothing revolutionary. Like, I'm not saying anything that other people haven't been saying for years and years and years. I also want to ask questions, and I want to maybe get some answers from people, because there are some things that I just am so curious about when it comes to the sexualization of female nipples. I just can't wrap my head around it, and I need someone to tell me what I'm missing, because I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know. It's baffling to me, and it has always been baffling to me, actually. Even as a teenager, I always found it so strange. But now I really do find it strange, especially when paintings, and by the way, all my paintings are not hyper-realistic. They are mostly women who are blue in color and are not people you would see walking down the street. The fact that art is being censored, to me, is insane, because it's not even real. It's not even a real nipple. It's something I made up in my mind and I put it on a piece of paper. It's just paint and canvas, and the internet still can't handle that. So I don't know. I just felt like I have to talk about this because I just need answers. I need someone to educate me on the other side, if there is another side that can educate me. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is, if I were to be painting men, and men with their male nipples, I don't believe I would be flagged on the internet as much as I am. I don't believe if I was painting men, anything would be taken down. I don't believe there would be a problem with anything. And I would also just like to say that in most of my paintings, some of them I do, but most of my paintings, I don't paint vaginas. It's mostly just women's nipples in the images. I don't really show or paint vaginas that much for no reason other than I just haven't done it yet. But before anyone's like, oh, well, maybe it's because of the vagina, because if you painted a penis, maybe that would get flagged. Yes, I agree. But I don't really include vaginas a lot in my paintings, so I know it's the nipples. I'm 100% clear about what is being flagged. I just want to discuss this comparison quickly, because I think this is the biggest thing that confuses me, is that male nipples are okay to show online, but female nipples are not. And I just want to get into a bit of a comparison between the male and the female nipple, because I don't quite get it. Let's put a female breast and a male chest next to each other, and let's compare the differences. So typically, I suppose, a female breast has a little bit more fatty tissue around the nipple, and a man's chest typically is a little bit flatter, has less fatty tissue around the nipple. I would also just like to say that I know men that have more fatty tissue around their nipples than some women I know. So that's not even really true, but I guess if you were to draw a female breast and a man's chest, you would maybe make the woman's chest a little fatter than the man's. But I swear to God, I've seen men with bigger breast tissue than women. So that alone is confusing to me. Okay, so we compare the two. The women have a little bit more fatty tissue around the nipple. Okay, so That seems to be the difference between the two, because the nipples, if you look at them, both look quite similar. Like, there's not so much of a difference. There's the nipple, and then there's the areola around the nipple. Both have that. Male nipples and female nipples both have those features, okay? If we must be in a world where we tell women what to do and what they can show and all of that, okay? If we must live in a world like that, wouldn't it make sense that we would want to cover up the one thing that women have different to the man, right? No, actually. For some reason, as a society, the fatty bit around the nipple is actually fine to show. Like, we don't really have a problem with that. What we do have a problem with is the actual nipple. That doesn't make sense to me at all. That is the most confusing thing that I've ever heard. Like, someone explain that logic to me, because that is what is blowing my mind. I don't get that at all. I actually remember seeing who was it? I think it was actually an actor, and they were in an interview, and they were like, if you got a picture of a naked woman and then you photoshopped just on top of the nipple a man's nipple, that seems to fly on the internet, which is so interesting to me. How they can even tell the difference, I have absolutely no idea. But if you were to use, instead of like blurs or censorship stickers on a female nipple, and if you just replaced it with a male nipple, like, that's fine. Isn't that crazy? That makes no sense. And it looks exactly like a woman's nipple. Exactly like a woman's breast. Okay, anyway. I guess I want to go like a little bit into the history of the sexualization and censorship of women's nipples. And I would say that it's mostly American society that has such a problem with female nipples, because I know that there are other societies out there that still praise women's nipples for what they are. Women are allowed to walk around topless when it's hot, just like a man is. I think it's pretty much just American society, and maybe just Western society in general, that has decided that women's nipples are not to be seen and need to be hidden. Even when they're feeding a child, like all these new bibs that women can buy, and all these new little like breastfeeding huts or like breastfeeding capsules that they're starting to build for women to go and breastfeed in private. You know, some women don't feel comfortable with having their breasts out, and that's fine. So those things are great. But I think that the expectation that if you are to breastfeed your child, you should wear one or you should go into one of those rooms is not correct, because you are literally feeding your child, and that should not be sexualized. I don't know why, but I guess men really don't want women to have their nipples out, but it makes no sense to me. They're feeding their kid. Like, you're clearly the problem. If you have a problem with that, you are the problem. You know, there's no other reason that it's bad. You should take a look at yourself. If you're like, oh my god, that woman has her nipple out feeding her child, like, I have never, what an abomination, like, stop. Just stop. Like, it's crazy. I think that if men understood that there is no problem and just stopped getting so offended by nipples, female nipples, then maybe the problem would completely go away, because there's no other reason. It's not like planes will fall out of the sky, or, you know, an outbreak will happen if a woman's nipple is seen in public. Like, there's no repercussions to women's nipples being out in public. There just aren't. Nothing. There's nothing bad that's going to happen, except some people will feel uncomfortable. Mostly men will feel uncomfortable. Yeah. That's it. That's literally the only reason why women feel like they have to be censored. That's it. There will be no deeper repercussions than someone walking past and for some reason feeling a little bit uncomfortable. That is literally as far as it goes. Yeah. Like, I've been thinking about how it even became like this. So I did a little research on the history of the sexualization of female nipples, and I found it actually quite interesting, so I'm going to share some stuff with you. Okay, so in ancient societies, nipples were out. Everyone's nipples were out, people were walking around naked, it was all great, no one had a problem with anything, it was fine. There was no sexualization towards female nipples, it was all good. When the Roman Empire began, the sexualization of women's nipples became a little bit more apparent. It wasn't really something that was controlling society, and I think it was a lot more women's choice as to whether they wanted to have a top off or not. I don't think it was society telling them that they couldn't. I don't think there were any laws or rules back then that women could not have their nipples out. There was nothing like that. In the Middle Ages, religion becomes a little bit bigger. It becomes a little bit more rule defining. We all know the story of Adam and Eve is a naughty little girl, obviously, who tempted Adam to eat the apple, and from then, women became this terrible entity of temptation and sin, and that is kind of where it all started to go a bit wrong, I think. They say that women were punished for being sinful by having painful periods and painful births. I feel like maybe we were having painful births before Adam and Eve, just because, like, well, I guess in the Bible there wasn't anything before Adam and Eve. Interesting. Alright, so anyway, we're being punished with painful periods and painful births because we tempted Adam to eat the apple and was so bad, naughty. So then, once we became figures of sin and temptation, that is when society wanted us to cover up a little bit more and didn't want us to be as free as we once were, because of a story about a man eating an apple from a tree that a woman made him do, apparently. So then women had to go into a state of modesty that involved covering up your bodies a lot more than you used to. But men are exempt because the men were the ones that were tempted by the women, so they didn't do anything wrong, so they don't really have to cover up like the women now. Then we get into like the Victorian era. This is when modesty became obsessional and women were expected to cover their bodies extensively. And even the mention of body parts like ankles or shoulders were considered indecent. So no ankles, no shoulders, no nothing. Especially no nipples. Absolutely not. The repression of sexuality led to a paradox where the more women's bodies were covered up, the more they were sexualized, because they were like these hidden things that no one was allowed to see, and so they just became inherently more sexual. They became like this secret. And this is when nipples and breasts became highly eroticized, just because they were like rarely seen in public. So when people saw them in public, it was like, oh my god, there's a nipple, a female nipple, wow. We then have pin-up culture, which definitely sexualized the female body, like a lot, and it became a lot of art and photography, which was further sexualizing the female body, and breasts always became a focal point of like sexual attraction. However, even then, in this art, nipples were often censored or covered, so it was just like women with like larger breasts, but there was no nipples out in this kind of art. Maybe there was like a form of a nipple underneath a shirt, but there was like no exposed nipples happening there. Okay, so then we have the 1960s to 1970s, and we have a little bit of a sexual revolution happening, which challenged the societal norms around nudity and sexuality. We've got our feminists, our lovely feminists, pushing back on the objectification of women and advocating, and this is where advocating for women's autonomy of their own bodies really became a conversation happening in society, and it was not really discussed really much before this. We even had something called the Top Freedom movement, which was women really pushing to be able to show as much as men were, chest-wise. And then we have like the late 20th century, and this is when things became a little crazy because every kind of advert for anything literally used a sexy lady to gain clients. So we would have car adverts with a lady with large breasts. We would have a hamburger advert with women with large breasts. This was when like the sexualization of women became insane. People wanted to buy anything that a woman with big breasts was buying. There was this emphasis on breasts, but more for the male gaze as opposed to women being liberated. It was more, oh, these things are sexual. If you want a sexual being like this, then you should buy this car or you should eat this hamburger or whatever. So this is definitely when the female nipple becomes more for like the male gaze as opposed to like women's liberation. Okay, so then we're in the 21st century, and like I would say that women are probably the most liberated they have been, but this is not to say that they are liberated fully. Like, we are definitely told a lot what to do with our bodies when it comes to things like birth. Women typically gave birth on their backs because it was actually easier for the doctor. Women giving birth in different positions has been something that's been happening more recently and has been allowed more recently. Before, it was like on your back or nothing because it was easier for the doctor to see, and actually I think Some people were saying that it was even a fetish for some men to see women giving birth on their backs. So that's something that's changed. Love it. We have the topic of abortion, which is ongoing and is going up and down in a very scary manner. We have the topic of birth control. And we have the topic of nudity for women. I think that also there is huge deconstruction of gender norms in the 21st century, which is fab. I think that people are really like questioning and fighting against what people expect of each gender, which is awesome. And I think that discussion just brings in societal expectations of women, and I think that does involve like having your breasts out in public or being able to see your nipple. I know a lot of women are really doing amazing things, especially in the fashion. Like, I have been seeing so many women with like sheer tops on and no bras, and I think people are just becoming more and more desensitized to that, which I think is amazing. I think that if you're a woman and your breasts are visible, I don't think it should be so shocking to people, and I think that's like how sexualization of female nipples even started, was the fact that we were hiding them so much that when they suddenly came out, people were like, oh my god, what is that? That's a woman's breast. And I think the more and more we show the breasts like in public and just like not giving a fuck about like what anyone has to say about it or who cares about it, will start to desensitize people to the fact that they think women's nipples are sexual, because they'll just see them around and they'll be like, oh, yep, that's a nipple, that's a female nipple, that's okay, like, I've seen it before, all good. And it won't be like this insane, like, secret forbidden fruit that when men see it, they're like, oh my god, what is that? You know, I think it's like a really good way to start desensitizing the public to female breasts. So love that. And we also have Free the Nipple. You know, Free the Nipple movement is huge. I love it. I don't know how many moves we've been making with that, but the fact that there is a movement now about it is awesome. And I have some thoughts on that. I have some thoughts on things that we could do. So Free the Nipple, like, let me know if you want to hear my ideas, because I have a few. Look, like, people might be like, why do you even care if you can have your nipples out? Like, men don't even have their tops off that much. I think the repercussions of a woman having their nipple out is so crazy and intense, and I think that women probably want their nipples out more now because they're not allowed to, because naturally humans are very rebellious towards laws. And I just think that having any laws or any comments about what a woman can do with her body is so old-fashioned and just ridiculous. Like, let's not keep doing that. Let's just let women do what they want to do. Don't have any laws against men's bodies. There is literally nothing I can think of except for like getting their penises out in public. That I agree with, we shouldn't be doing that. But women are not trying to get their pussies out in public. Like, we're just not. That is not the aim. We just want equality. We just want to have as many rules on our bodies as men do, which is very, very, very little. I think maybe that is literally the only law that men have on their bodies, is that they cannot get their dicks out in public, which I think should stay in place. Honestly, I've personally seen a lot of penises. I used to live in downtown LA. I've seen a lot of unsolicited penises in public, and that is not a fun journey. Like, we are not trying to get there. We're not trying to do that. We just want to be as free as a man. That's all we're trying to do. It's just the principle of the whole thing, you know. I don't think if you let women have their nipples out, we're going to suddenly see everyone with no top on walking around the streets. Like, I don't even think that's going to be happening. I think women like wearing tops. I think we like covering up sometimes. I think sometimes an outfit looks better if there's no nipples visible at all. Like, it's not that we want to be running free in the fields naked. I mean, some of us do. But it's just so that we could be like respected as much as a man is. And I think that's kind of all it boils down to. I don't think we're trying to overtake the world one nipple at a time. I just don't think that's really our aim. But anyway, I don't know. Like, I just have been and remain confused about censorship of female nipples. I don't get it. And, you know, if one day I have kids, I'm definitely not going to be censoring my, you know, young girl and telling her that, like, her breasts are bad and they are just there to tempt boys into doing naughty stuff. Like, no way. I will not be teaching my daughter that. I'll be teaching her how to respect herself and how to tell people no thanks. I also read like these horrible comments. I can't remember what the post was, but there was a post like about women being able to have their breasts out, and the comments were absolutely horrendous. It was basically all men, older men, commenting how women shouldn't be surprised if they get sexually assaulted more when they have their nipples out, because what do they expect? Hideous. Absolutely hideous. And it just, puts my point even into, it just shows that this whole problem that people have with nipples stems from men sexualizing women way too much, to the point that they can't control themselves, and so they think the best thing to do is just to cover the women up and censor the women so that they don't have to see it, they don't have to be tempted, and they can just, control themselves. But why are we living in a world like that? Why are we living in a world that caters to one sex and represses another? Just teach your sons not to sexualize women. It's that simple. It blows my mind. But anyway, if you guys have a different view, let me know, because I'm curious. I just can't see a logical answer to why women have to cover up more than men, even though our anatomies are almost pretty similar, physically above the waist. I just don't know. I really want to know your thoughts. Maybe it's because I grew up in a naked house and I was always surrounded by naked women that I'm these things are just parts of our bodies, and it's crazy that we have to cover them up. But yeah, I don't know, I would love to know your guys' thoughts. This is a topic that I really focus on in my art as well. We don't have to be sexual for other people. We are when we want to be sexual beings, but we're not just overtly sexual beings all the time for you to put rules on and make us listen to them. I have so much to say about this topic, and if anyone has any comments or questions or has anything else to say, I would love to hear, because I am just so curious. Yeah, I don't know. Love to hear other people's perspective if they have any. I could go into this topic forever and ever and ever, and I will if someone wants me to, but I just wanted to talk about this today because I literally got an explicit sexual content warning on my Reddit and YouTube actually the other day. And I was like, oh my god, please, stop. They're not even real nipples, they're fake. They're literally paintings, it's literally oil paint on top of canvas. So, I don't know. Anyway, I want to know your thoughts. I love you guys. I feel like I got heated and people are probably going to call me a feminazi or something like that. Listen, that's fine. I don't have a problem with the labels. I'm just trying to get answers, This was just basically a big question for other people to fill me in on. I just want to know everyone else's opinions. I really, really do. But yeah, anyway, I love you guys. This is a little bit of a heated episode, but I'm just really trying to, crack the code, crack the case, trying to figure it out one step at a time. I love you guys so much. And maybe next week we'll have a bit of a lighter topic. Not sure. We'll see what happens in the week to come. But I love you. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I really am noticing a lot of you watching my videos and you're not subscribed, and I don't really like that, so subscribe. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Okay, love you. Bye, 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 bye.